of Money with Santosh Sirur.
Hello and welcome to another super special episode of The Sound of Money with me, Santosh Sirur. Today on my show, I have a very special guest joining in from Dallas, and he is none other than Mr. George Brody. To give you a short introduction will be too short on my side, but the amazing career he has had, and we'll talk about all that in the career section in the beginning of it, and where Mr. Brody will talk to us about how easy or challenging was it to move from India and then on to the US in the mid 80s. And yes, our special guest, of course, Mr. George Brody. He's a CEO at Infonet of Things. He's also the chair at TIE Dallas Angels and also a board member on TIE Dallas. With an exceptional 43 years of career, and which is what we will talk about on in this podcast. 17 years he has been having an entrepreneurial journey. He has served as a VP and general manager in Nortel Networks. In fact, this was a worldwide role. So I can imagine the kind of excitement that we have on this show where Mr. Brody will share with us about all his career and more on this episode of The Sound of Money. First, let's welcome our guest. Hi, Mr. Brody. Welcome to The Sound of Money.
Thank you. But thank you very much, Santosh. It's very nice to be here with you. Good morning to you. Yeah.
Mr. Brody, the first question I have for you is you started your career in India way back maybe in the 80s, right? And then you moved on to the United States. Moving on to United States way back in 80s must have been a very different from what it is today. How easy or how challenging was that journey? And maybe you could walk us through your career in short.
Yeah, in fact, before I jump into the transition to the US and Canada for that matter, one of the things that I kind of went through was as a child, always wanted to be with the best. And at that time, it looked like you had to be going abroad and being with somebody else, some of the best in the world kind of thing. So that dream was always there. And then, as I will describe later in how I got to that, but the Indian Institute of Science, where I went to study, was a big factor in this because it was almost like a training ground for going abroad for education. Okay? So I came as a student to the University of New Brunswick in Canada. And so there, having gone to an Indian Institute of Science kind of helped a lot because it's not like big, huge transition to come and study abroad in a university here. The systems were very compatible. So that was a good thing. And then obviously finished my 2 master's degrees at the University of New Brunswick. And then I got hired off the campus. To industry veteran company called Northern Telecom at that time, and BNR. So in order for me to contrast the two, soon after I graduated from the Indian Institute of Science in 1968, I decided that along with all my classmates, I didn't want to come abroad immediately. I said I wanted to work in India for 1 year. So it so happened I got a job at ISRO, which turned out to be the best thing that happened, where for me to be able to witness leaders like Vikram Sarabhai and Abdul Kalam in action at that time. So that 1 year really helped me kind of see how a job will be in India. And then I contrasted that with my Northern Telecom job. I can really draw parallels as well as big, huge differences in the way the industry works in North America.
Okay. Mr. Brody, what was that step that it initiated you to move into the Canada or the US as a part of your career? How was it in initial days when it was like, and I'm sure you're talking of the early 80s and kind of mid 80s. How were the challenges then?
Yeah, no, actually I left India in 1969.
Okay.
So it was pretty early on. So I graduated in 68, and then 68 to 69, I worked at ISRO. And then 69, I came for my graduate studies to Canada. So I finished my 2 master's degrees by 73. Okay. And then I joined the workforce in Canada, joined Northern Telecom in 73. So from 73 to 80, I worked in Canada.
Okay.
So then I moved to the US in 1980 to work for Siemens. And then 1982 onwards, I was back in Northern Telecom in Dallas.
Okay. Okay. You know, recently you were inducted into the Marquis Who's Who. So what exactly is Marquis Who's Who, and you know how excited are you to be a part of this?
Well, it was by invitation, and I was very honored to be invited to be part of that select group. And it was a recognition of all the decades of my service to the industry, the wireless industry in particular, and also my career. So it was a very good thing to have that I got recognized by Marquis Who's Who. Thank you for doing that. Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah. You know, you are playing a very significant and a very active role as the chair in TIE Dallas Angels. And maybe you should share with us about TIE Dallas Angels, a little more about that, and what kind of role is it, and where do you see the TIE Dallas going ahead?
Yes. In fact, before I come to the TIE Dallas, it's the entrepreneurial stint of my career you mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Like I was in corporate life for 26 plus years, in worldwide telecom, software and hardware business, and the wireless industry. Then in 2000, I decided to start my own company called Globe Ranger, which was venture backed. So that was my entrepreneurial journey from 2000 to 2014. I created a company and got it funded, grew it, and then got exited into 2014. So that entrepreneurial journey is what kind of gave me the impetus to try to get something going with the TIE Dallas Angels Group, which is every chapter TIE has an angel group, pretty much, and every big city has one. And the one in Dallas, we rebranded and started it about 2 years ago. And we're right now about 60 angels, all come from all different backgrounds. And we have done about 6 or 7 deals by now. And we had about 40 pitches by different companies. And we invest in early stage companies, in much seed and pre-seed stage companies. But we look for a good team, a good growth market, as well as ability to execute potential kind of stuff. And the main reason for the angel group to exist is to give back a little bit, because if making money was the only objective, we could do other things. But in this case, what we want to do is help entrepreneurs who are coming in with our expertise. And so the angels are all very experienced people.
That's really interesting to know. So you know your own expertise, your experience, and now you kind of mentoring the youngsters who are having startups. What I wanted to know is, how is the startup culture in and around where you guys are operating? Because as you know, India is really at that stage of a liftoff stage. How is it currently in the United States and Dallas in particular?
Yes, in fact, the entrepreneurship is, again, it goes into centers like Silicon Valley, you have Boston, and you got Austin in Texas, for example, Austin and Dallas. So it's a very vibrant ecosystem of entrepreneurship in Texas, for example, especially because the cost of living is very affordable, and it's easy to run a company in Texas compared to the costs in, say, for example, operating in California. So a lot of startups are coming up in this Texas ecosystem. And the whole idea is to get enough funding sources available within Texas or other places within the US to be able to nurture them. That's why these angel groups are very critical, because early stage funding, VCs are a little further out. So early stage funding should come from, angel groups, private investors.
Okay. How have you been associated with India? And if so, as you would know, India is in its massive development stage, and in fact, it is heading towards a major expansion and growth story, the India story, as we call it. What are your views on the India growth story as you see it from a Dallas lens or a US lens on India?
Yeah, India is definitely the the biggest wave that is coming right now.
Yeah.
And personally, I was fortunate enough in 2010 time frame, I was able to invest in a company called MobMe in Kerala. 3 youngsters who came out and wanted to give something back to the Kerala ecosystem. And this company then became extremely successful. So I've been very actively involved in the Indian entrepreneurial ecosystem in Bangalore, Bombay, and other places. And I'm very convinced right now that the future is in India.
Okay.
So whether the companies are incorporated in India or in the US, doesn't matter, but the brain power and the entrepreneurs are come out right now to create great ventures, unicorns and others. So I would definitely say that personally, I'm very interested in being part of that wave.
Okay. Mr. Brody, you would have come across amazing kind of talent and skill sets, both in India and in the United States. Do you find similarities in the skill sets and talent, or are there any challenges or gaps where, and what are those if they could be plugged, especially, with your experience that you've come across?
Yeah, in fact, if you were to look at the major centers in India, like Bangalore and other places, the quality of entrepreneurs that I'm seeing there has absolutely changed from the time I was, starting to invest in Indian ecosystem a few years ago.
Okay.
So right now, it looks like IIT Madras, for example, has an incubation cell. IISc has an incubation cell inside. So they are nurturing ideas that are coming in, incubating them, and then obviously getting it funded, and the companies are going off. So that process didn't exist. Okay, so if you were to contrast that with here, that is what is really propelling some of the startups in the US. So we are a little bit time lag, but it is happening right now. I'm very happy to see that the Indian ecosystem is the flywheel is starting to turn very quickly now.
In fact, Mr. Brody, tech is making a lot of news these days. Everything is digital. Everything is moving in a very fast-paced direction. And India is also, moving ahead in a very fast-paced way, as we just spoke. Where do you see the world moving with your experience? Because you would have seen a very different world when you started off your career, and then somewhere as this, when you were leading Nortel Tele Networks, it was a different world, and now you see completely the world in a different level or in a different orbit. How that I'm sure you have seen that amazing parts or the phases, I would say, of the tech space. Where do you see this heading in due course?
Yeah, in fact, I will always look back and see what technology has done. Okay, so even the tools that are available today for innovators to be able to create something new are totally like orders of magnitude more powerful than what I was coming out of my college, or even working in India for that matter. So that is a big boon to the Indian entrepreneur. Okay. For example, they're able to tap into the latest and greatest tools, and some of them they have created themselves in India. Okay, and to be able to use them to be able to create innovation. So this is just going to be at a very rapid pace, especially with the advent of AI, machine learning, all these different technologies that are out there right now in platforms. I think India has a very good chance to leapfrog. Just to give you an idea, the wireless wave took off in India much bigger way than the US. The main reason was there was a landline infrastructure in place. There was a telephone network in place. So people incrementally started using the cell phones. Now, of course, it's very pervasive. Whereas in India, it took off, the mobile networks took off very big because there was
very
landline.
Fast. True.
So to me, that is the same thing that is going to happen in technology, for example. There is no infrastructure that is going to hold back the Indian innovation, right?
Okay.
So they're going to use these tools, they're going to innovate and create more and more unicorns.
Brilliant, brilliant. Mr. Brody, with an amazing experience, such a vast experience, and through these number of years, also your education in India, working with ISRO, then on to name companies like Nortel in the United States. You have been an amazing mentor for lots of students and lots of startup ventures and entrepreneurs, right? What are the kind of issues that come up to you from these entrepreneurs, or maybe even as students whom you have been mentoring over the years, and what's been your area of interest to discuss with them?
Yeah. Most of them has been to try and groom them in a way they can become very successful entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
First-time entrepreneurs, for example, how do you raise money?
Yeah.
Closing skills. So those kind of things, you kind of mentor them to say, how do you really put your pitch deck together so that investor will be interested in it. So those areas are where a lot of the mentoring happens with startups. And the second piece is also being able to tell them how to put together a financial plan, a projection. Most of them don't come equipped with that kind of skill. So those are the things I would say, as the person who starts the company may not be the one that takes it to the next stage and to scale. So different skills are required. So the founder has to be open to bringing in the right talent at the right time to be able to scale the company. So those are the things that we not typically impart to the entrepreneur.
That's great. In fact, Mr. Brody, we have this podcast, The Sound of Money, has a lot of viewership, especially amongst students and more so amongst young professionals, who are venturing into their own startups ecosystems in due course. What would be based on your 43 plus years of experience, and India, as you know, is relatively at its nascent stage of entrepreneurship, development and startup culture just kick-started. It says already started, but kick-starting all the more and going on a different level. What would be that one single message for these guys, that they really need to bear in mind and as they progress in their journey?
Yeah, there are a few things I would like to highlight on that. First thing is, if you're starting an entrepreneurial journey, there is no way to escape an emotional, wave that you have to go through. There will be ups and downs. You have to be mentally strong enough to be able to go through that emotional journey to create something big, right? That's first thing. The second thing is to make sure that you have your tenacity and your persistence to stick with your dream, and don't ever give up, trying to have that kind of a mentality. Every day you wake up trying to take this thing forward, kind of stuff. The third one is to make sure that you need to be adaptable, like adapt or die. If people who refuse to pivot are going to have a lot of trouble. So as the market changes, curveballs are going to be thrown at you. You'll have to be able to adapt those things. And last but not least is the ability to sell. Okay, the whole journey, if you're a CEO or a founder, you're essentially selling your idea, and you think to raise money, to scale it, and eventually the whole thing will be to sell to a buyer or go IPO with whatever is the right solution. So be focused on the goal you want to do, but at the end of the day, you are going to be looking at, why am I doing this? It's not just for making money. You need to leave a legacy behind. Something that you created is helping the world. So that's where I'm kind of today, when I look back my life, being very involved with the wireless revolution. Today, when everybody is using a cell phone, things like that, I say I've been part of that. It gives me a lot of satisfaction when I look at that stuff. So every entrepreneur should think like that, in the sense that after they move on to the next venture, something that they created is being used by humans for doing something great, kind of stuff.
Yeah, I can only imagine that excitement and that pride that you have, when you see the entire globe now glued onto the cell phones, and you have been a very significant part of this journey, and that too at a very initial nascent stage when wireless was just coming up, and I'm sure your contribution has been of immense value. One question before we leave, Mr. Brody, for you is how is a day for Mr. Brody on a day off, on a weekend or a holiday? How do you unwind? With the kind of exciting work that you have been doing over the years, how is it that you spend a day, in the way you want it? It's how is your me time?
Yeah. So just to give you a little bit of my secret, after I sold my company and then stayed on for a couple of years, and then I left the big company to be on my own.
Yeah.
That time, a lot of people approached me to do an operating role. So what I decided to do was to not do an operating role, because I will be then focused on one particular deal, right? So then I said, I will not do an operating role for one company. Let me get involved in multiple companies and help them. So that is one thing. So I partitioned some part of my time for doing that directly. I don't put passively my money into any company. I actually help them with that stuff.
Okay.
The other piece of this not negotiable is my family. Okay.
True.
So family and leisure time is pretty much set. And then managing my own investments. And I also run this foundation for my alma mater called Indian Institute of Science, IISc Foundation in the US. So that definitely keeps me busy with giving back. So a friend of mine said there are 3 stages, right? You're learning, earning, and returning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
well said.
This is the 3rd inning, if you would, for me. I'm in the returning stage of things. So very gratifying to be in this mode where I'm able to impact, at least in a small way, many entrepreneurial startups, and through the Angel Group as well as my own personal portfolio. So it's very gratifying, and that's a legacy I want to leave behind. So the startup that I did was also pretty exciting. It's in the Internet of Things, IoT field. It was creating an IoT platform, which is in the enterprise market. So today, when I see Fujitsu deploying that to different in industries, it feels good. I see a press release, I say, we created something that is used by industry right there. So it's very gratifying looking back. So
Indeed.
I hope all the entrepreneurs who are creating ventures someday will get to the end of their journey and look back and say, I did create something.
Agree completely. Mr. George Brody, CEO at Infonet of Things, Chair TIE Dallas Angels, and of course, an amazing 43-year career in not just United States, but also as globally. In fact, I've been serving as on the Nortel networks in a worldwide role. Pleasure having you on this show of mine, which is the podcast, which is titled The Sound of Money. Thank you so much for joining in.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Santosh. Really enjoyed talking to you. Bye.
Thank you. And well, with that, we come to the end of this episode of The Sound of Money with me, Santosh Sirur, with my guest, Mr. George Brody, and me, Santosh Sirur. Enjoy the next episode as it comes in the coming weeks. Bye-bye and take care.
Sound of Money with Santosh Sirur.